Welcome back, my dear students. What a joy to see you back, Mr. Max. So excited you're back after doing all your quiz, and then here you are, you want to learn more. Well, in this sub lesson we're going to talk about square root of positive numbers. Okay, now what is square root? Square root is the reverse of the square. Okay, so let's understand what square root. Okay, so when Mr. Max says the reverse of the square, now let's talk about the square. Let's review. Okay, let's say for example, when I have a 4 squared, what gives me 4 times 4? Am I right? Which is what? 16. Okay, now if I have a 5 squared, it will be what? 5 times 5, which is 25. All right, see that? So that's the square. The square of the number, okay, of an integer. Let's say for example, if I want to find a square root, I go the other way around, the opposite, okay, the reverse of that. I'm going from here to there. See, square, you're going from this way direction. See that? Square root, you're going that direction. That means if I to ask you the square root of 25, that is square root. Okay, square root. Okay, keep in mind that is square and this is square root. That means I'm asking for what are the two numbers when I multiply. Identical numbers will give me 25, and I only need one of them. So in other words, 5 times 5, you just pick one, which is 5. That's what square root means. Let's see, for example, if I ask you what the square root of 144, and I want you to tell me the square root of 145. That means I'm looking for two identical number. When multiply, give me 144, and I only need one of that. Okay, which means 12 times 12, I just need one, which is 12 right there. That's what square root is. Okay, so the thing is, we want to find the square root of a number which is a perfect square. If the number is a perfect square, you will have a square root of a nice round digit, a round number. Okay, so I can give you anything. So if I ask you square root of 81, you should know which is 9. Alright, so that's why timetable comes so important. Alright, so we know that 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared, 7 squared, 8 squared, 9 squared, 10 squared, 11 squared, and 12 squared, which is what? 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. Okay, this is squared, alright? 6 squared. And then 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144. Any of this I give you, you should be able to know the square root. If I ask you square root of 25, it's 5. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 100 is 10. Square root of 144 is 12. Square root of 121 is 11. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. And square root of 1 is 1. See that? And then you ask, wow, Mr. Mac, what happened if it's outside our timetable range? Okay, let's say for example, if I give you the square root of 256, you said, well, we need to find if it's 256 a perfect square. How do we know if the 256 is a perfect square? Exactly, using the one-legged ladder method. Alright, so we take 256, we're going to put the one-legged ladder method, we put the 256 inside, and it's an even number. We're going to start with 2. In 2 there's how many 2? 1. Then go to the next digit. 5 there's how many 2? 2. 2 times 4 is 2 times 2 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. The balance 1, you put it right there. In 16 there's how many 2? 8. It's still even. I can divide this by 2. I cannot 1. Go to the next digit, which will be 12. In 12 there's how many 2? 6. In 8 there's how many 2? 4. Still even. I can divide this by 2. In 6 there's how many 2? 3. In 4 there's how many 2? 2. It's still even. I can divide this by 2. In 3 there's how many 2? 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. The balance, I put it right there. In 12 there's how many 2? 6. And then I can still divide that by 2. In 16 there's how many 2? 8. In 8 there's how many 2? 4. In 4 there's how many 2? 2. In 2 there's how many 2? 1. See that? Now I'm going to put 2 boxes, alright? We're going to distribute. First 2 for that one, second 2 for this one, and this one, and then this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. See that? Now look, 2 times, see the evenly distributed. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. So 16, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. So 16 times 16 give me 256. That's a perfect square. And when I square it, I only need 1 out of that. Which means what? Equals to 16. Right there. See that? That's how you find the square root. The key to find the square root is make sure the number inside is a perfect square. Once it's a perfect square, you should be able to find the square root. 5 times 5, you only need 1 out of that. That's what square root means. 12 times 12, you only need 1 out of that. That's what square root means. 9 times 9, you only need 1 out of that. That's what square root. For 256, 16 times 16, you only need 1 out of that. That's what square root means. Alright? Does that make sense? So now you understand square and the square root. Square is the reverse of the square. Okay, good. Well, let Mr. Mack erase the board. Let's talk more about square root, and I'll be back with you in a few seconds. Right, my dear student. Now let's say, for example, okay, Mr. Mack to give you like this and ask you what's the square root. What actually this is? 4 times 4, which is 16. In other words, I kind of gave it to you away. In other words, pretty much you know it's going to be what? It's 4. See that? So in other words, if I give you negative 35 times negative 35 and ask you to find the square root, and you just take the 1, which is what? Negative 35. See that? Because there's a 2 of them. The square root is you're just taking 1 out of the 2 identical number you're multiplying. And that's what this is. Negative 35 times negative 35. Square root is just take 1 out of that. That's the answer. Alright? Okay? So I can give you anything. I can give you, let's say, 144 times 144. You tell me, what would that be? 144. You're right. Because you only need 1. That's what square root. Identical. Alright? Okay, now, let's say, for example, if I give you in a form of fraction. Now, let's say if I give you in a form of fraction as a square root, alright? Let's say I give you a square. Let's say I give 25 over 36. And I want you to find the square root of that. This can be also expressed in this way. 25 over 36. See that? So what is the square root of 25? It's 5. It's our timetable range, okay? And what's the square root of 36? It's 6. Right there. You can break that into that form. Alright, so now you're finding individually. Very important, okay? So let's say, for example, Mr. Mack to give you, alright, let's say 64 over 144. And I want to find the square root of that. So what do? Square root of 64 over square root of 144. What is the square root of 64? 8. What is the square root of 144? 12. Do I leave the answer like this? No, I can simplify. Okay, always simplify. You divide this by 4, divide this by 4. Common number you can divide. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 2 over 3. See that? So very important, okay? When I give you something in a form of fraction, you can break them up. Alright? Okay, keep in mind. Let's say, for example, I give you p squared and ask you to find the square root of that. What does p squared means? P times p, and we only need 1 out of that, which means what? P. See that? So in other words, if I give you square root of 6 squared, 6 squared is what? 36. Square root of 36 is what? 6. But you don't want to do that because you already know 6 squared, which means what? 6 times 6. You only need 1 of them. 6. So now if I give you 9 squared, you know it's 9. If I give you 8 squared, it's 8. If I give you 10 squared, it's 10. See that? So keep in mind, if I have 100, it's what? 10 times 10. So when you're square rooting with 100 with the zeros, you need to have an even number, and you take the half of that. That means if you got 2 zeros, you only take 1. If there are 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, you take the half of that, which will be half of the 4 zeros will be what? 2 zeros. If it says 6 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, half of the 6 is 3. You put 3 zeros. See that? 1,000 times 1,000, right there. 100 times 100, right there. Okay? So keep in mind, alright? So I want you to understand how to, that can give you so many different ways, but I want you to be able to understand how to find the square root. The bottom line is what? It has to be a perfect square, okay? So in other words, it has to be perfect square, like 144, 64. They're able to find a nice integer as the final result, the square root of that. Okay, so it has to be a perfect square in order to find the square root of that. If it's not a perfect square, it's going to be a number with a decimal. So you will not get a nice round number. You will not get an integer, a whole number. And that's why you may have to use a calculator. If it's not a perfect square, you have to use a calculator to find the square root of that. But when it's a perfect square, you will never need to use a calculator. Alright? Okay, good. Now you know how to find a square root if it's a fraction. You know how to find if it's a perfect square. Even if I give it in a form of like this, or even in a form of like this, and also with 100, 10,000, million, you should be able to find the square root. Alright, Mr. Mac, erase the board. Let's talk more about square root, okay? I'll be back with you in a few seconds. We talked about how to find a square root for fraction. Let's review that again, okay? Let's say, for example, Mr. Mac to give you 4 over 9. I want to find the square root of that. Now you can break that up into square root of 4 over square root of 9, which is square root of 4 is 2, square root of 9 is 3. Okay, because of our timetable range, we should be able to find the square root right away. Am I right? Because that's 3 times 3 and 2 times 2. I only need 1 out of that, and that's 2. And then 3 times 3, I only need 1 out of that, which is 3. All right. Okay. So now let's talk about decimals. How to find square root of decimal. Okay. Let's say, for example, Mr. Mac gave you 0.01, and I want to find the square root of 0.01. Now before Mr. Mac continue, I wanted to make sure you understand the difference between square root sign and the long division sign. See that? What's the difference? This long division has a curve to the corner. See that? And look at the square root. Has a straight line and a tail to it. Alright? So this is a square root sign. Alright? Square root. This is a square root sign. And this is the long division sign, alright, which is Mr. Mac always refer that as the cage, alright, cage approach, okay, and that's the long division sign, and that's a square root sign, alright. Make sure you don't mix it up between those two, okay. You should be able to distinguish between square root and the long division. Alright, let's get back here, okay, good. Now we want to talk about how to find a square root of a decimal, 0.01. This is what I want you to do. I want you to move this decimal such a way this will become a round number. Okay, a number that is perfect square. Let's move this. 1, 2. When I moved it twice, alright? So, square root 1. Okay, that's become 1. Now, how many times did I move? I moved it twice, which is what? 100. Okay, so because 100 have how many zeros? 2 zeros. Okay, I moved it twice. Just leave it like that right now. Okay, what is square root of 1? Is 1. What is square root of 100? Is 10. Now, locate the decimal for this. Where is the decimal? It's right here. Move the decimal to the number of zeros. How many zeros does this one has? 1. Move it right there, just 1. and put the decimal back, it becomes 0.1. The square root of 0.01 is 0.1. That's it. We'll do more. I want to make sure you understand this, all right? Okay, let's prove it. Okay, we know that 0.1 times 0.1 should give me this, am I right? Okay, let's times that. 0.1 times 0.1 should be equal to 0.01. When we multiply two decimal, what do? We forget about the decimal right now and then remember now. Forget now, remember later. Okay, so we're going to forget it. Okay, 1 times 1 gives me 1. But we're going to remember back. How many numbers behind the decimal? 1, 2. Okay, the decimal is right here. I'm going to move it twice. 1, 2, and then put a decimal right there. The first bubble got 1, second bubble nothing, I put a 0. And then 0.01. Okay, I put a 0 right there. So it'll be 0.01. Like that, 0.01. See that? Alright, let's do another one. Okay, let's say for example, Mr. Mac to give you 0.0016. And I want to find the square root of that. Alright, what's my goal is? To move this decimal such a way that I get a round number, okay, a perfect square round number, which means 1, 2, 3, 4. I bring the decimal to right there, which means what? 16. Alright, square root of 16. Now how many times did I move? 4 times. That means 4 zeros. What would be number with the 4 zeros? It will be 10,000. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to find the square root of 10,000. First, what is the square root of 16? It's 4. What is the square root of 10,000? That means 100 times 100. See that? That means 100. Okay? Now, where's the decimal for 4? It's right there. Move the decimal 2 zeros twice to the left, to your left. 1, 2, and then put the decimal right there. And then the first bubble got 4, the second got nothing, you put a 0, and then you put a 0 right there. It becomes 0.04. So the square root of this is 0.04. That's the answer. See that? Pretty easy, isn't it? Okay, let's do another one. Okay, let's say Mr. Mac to give you, I want to find the 0.09. I want to find the square root of that. Alright? The decimal is right there. Let's move the decimal such a way you got a round number. Okay? A whole number. 1, 2. I moved it twice. Which means this will be what? It's square root of 9. How many times did I move it? Twice. That means 2 zeros. What number that has 2 zeros with a 1? 100. Okay? So I'm going to find the square root of 100. What is square root of 100? 10. What is square root of 9? 3. I put a decimal right there. 10 got how many zeros? 1. Move it how many times? Once. Only once. Then put the decimal right there. So it becomes 0.3. So square root of 0.09 is 0.3. Right there. That's it. Very easy. That's it. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, I want to make sure you understand. Let's find the square root of 0.00, let's say 81. Alright, so what's our first step? Take the decimal, move it such a way this one becomes 81. Okay, how many times do I move? 1, 2, 3, 4. I put the decimal right there. Now it becomes what? 81. Alright, now the 4 times I move, that means I want to put 4 zeros in front of a 1. And then I'm going to find the square root of that. Square root of 10,000, see 1, 2, 3, 4. That means you take half of that. That means 100. Square root of that will become 100 because 100 times 100 gives me that. So 100. Square root of 81 is 9. Now I locate the decimal right there. Move it how many times? To your left? 2 times. 1, 2. Put the decimal right there. First bubble got 9 in it. Second bubble put a 0 and then put a 0 in front of that. So that makes it 0.09. That's the square root of 0.0081. Pretty easy, isn't it? Very straightforward. Okay, apply this approach to find as long it's a perfect square. Okay, this number is perfect square. If this number is a perfect square, okay, like this one was a perfect square. All right, okay, good. let Mr. Mac erase the board. Let's talk more about square roots. It's more much fun, isn't it? Yes, I'll be back. Now let's say, for example, for Mr. Mac to give you square root of 5 times square root of 5 and ask you to solve this. Now what this means? This is actually square root 5 times 5. I can combine. Now be careful, so only if it's multiply you can do this. If it's addition, you cannot do this. You cannot say, let's say for example, Mr. Mac to give you this. This is not true. Okay, this is not true. You cannot do that. But yes, multiplication, I can do that. Alright, and it's also not true for subtraction as well. Okay, I cannot do this. Alright, okay, but with multiplication, yes. Or division, let's say if I got like this, I can put like this together. Division and multiplication, I can combine them inside the square root, but I cannot do towards addition or subtraction. Alright, so now if I give you like this and ask you to find the value, that's what this is, 5 times 5, which means what? Square root of 25. And what's square root of 25? Which is 5. And I don't want you to do all this to get to the answer. I want you to able to, whenever you see square root of 5 multiplying with the square root of 5, the identical, it's going to give you what? The 5. So in other words, if I give you square root of 3 times square root of 3, it should be what? 3. Square root of 8 times square root of 8 should be what? 8. Square root of 7 times square root of 7 should be what? 7. Square root of 159 times square root of 159, 159. Very good. That's what I want you to know. Alright? I don't want you to go through all this to get to that. Because same. Pretty much what? Square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5. Square root of 159 times square root of 159 is 159. Square root of 1029 times square root of 1029 is 1029. See that? Alright? So I want you to know that. Alright? So keep in mind. Okay, now if I have square root of, let's say 25 over square root of, let's say 4. Now this is also can be written as 25 over 4, vice versa. Alright? Now if I had to give you a problem and ask you to simplify or find the solution for it, okay? Let's say for example, if I give you square root of 50 over square root of 2. How do you do this? Well, this is also equals to 50 divided by 2. What's 50 divided by 2? Let's use the long division, okay? Because we got 50 over 2, it also means 50 divided by 2. Alright? The cage approach, 50 is kind of into Mr. Mac, I'm going to put it inside the cage. 2 is kind of out, I'll put outside. In 5, there's how many? 2. 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. I bring the 0 down. In 10, there's how many? 2. 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Minus, give me 0. That means 25. I simplified inside. Gave me 50 divided by 2 is 25. Square root of 25 is what? 5. See that? Square root of 50 or square root of 20, square root of 50, square root of 50 over square root of 2 equals to square root of 50 over 2. 50 over 2 means it's dividing. Right there. And it should give me 25, which means square root of 25 is 5. I can do same thing with the multiplication. I can give you square root of, let's say 18 times square root of 2 and ask you to find this. When you multiply, you can put them together. I can write down as 18 times 2. What's 18 times 2? Let's multiply using long multiplication. Line it up. 2 times 8 is 16. 6 carry 1. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. 36. And what is square root of 36? 6. See that? Pretty easy, isn't it? Alright, let Mr. Mac erase the board. Let's talk more about this. I'll be back with you in a few seconds. Alright, my dear students, let's talk more about it. Okay, let's say for example, if I were to give you 5 over 7 square root times with 5 over 7. What would that be? Look at it, they're identical. It's going to be 5 over 7. Just like what we learned earlier. 5 times square root of 5. Square root of 5 times square root of 5 will be what? 5. This one is pretty much is 5 square root of 5 over square root of 7 times square root of 5 over square root of 7. Square root of 5 times square root of 5, 5. Square root of 7 times square root of 7, 7. See that? Pretty straightforward, okay? So keep in mind, when you multiply and divide, you can put them all in together inside one square root, okay? Alright, let's say for example, Mr. Mac to give you 32 times 2 and ask you to solve this. You said, well, Mr. Mac, these are not perfect square. How am I going to solve it? Well, combine them. 32 times 2. So in other words, 32 times 2. Now solve it and see what that will be. So let's do that. 32 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. And this is square root of 64. Square root of 64 is what? Exactly. It's 8. 8. See that? I can manipulate in so many different ways. Okay? So now, keep in mind, if I give you square root of, let's say, 25 times square root of 4. But you just already a perfect square. So don't times them out. Right away do that. Square root of 25 is what? 5. Square root of 4 is what? 2. So 5 times 2, 10. Right there. Alright? Keep in mind, okay? Now let's say for example, if I give you square root of, let's say 3 over, let's say 16 times square root of 3. And ask you to simplify this. Look at this. Square root of 3 over 16. Okay? Which means square root of 3, square root of 16. You're multiplying with square root of 3 over 1. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is what? It's 3. Square root of 16 is 4. Because it times 1 is to give you 4. Right there. See that? Mr. Mac can manipulate this. Give you so many different ways. But the key is to understand, in order to able to square root a number, it has to be what? A perfect square. Alright? So that's why I give you something like this, so that you should be able to times it out to bring it to the perfect square. Sometimes I will not give it to you. You got to find it, like this, right there. You got to find it. Like this, right there. You got to find it. Alright? And that's the beauty about mathematics. It challenges your thinking. It challenges you to come up with a solution. Alright? Okay, good. Let's erase the board and let's talk more about square root. I'll be back with you in a few seconds. Alright, my dear student, let's see for example, Mr. Mac to give you, okay, I told you, find the square root of 12. And then I give you some information. I say find this if square root of 3 equals to 1.7. This is like, whoa, square root of 3 is 1.7, but what got to do with 12? Square root of 12. Actually it is. Look at the 12 and 3. 3 should give you a hint that I can break 12 with the presence of 3. What is that? What do I mean by that? Look, 3 times 4. Can I break this apart? Yes, square root of 3 times square root of 4. Do I know square root of 4? Yes, which is 2. Now, do I know square root of 3? I gave you 1.7. Can I find the final answer? Yes, 1.7 times 2. But in this case, we're going to use what? Forget now, remember later. Okay, so we're going to forget the decimal. So we're going to take 17 times 2. 2 times 7 is 14. 4 carry 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Plus 1 is 3. 34. But I'm going to bring back the decimal. How many numbers behind the decimal? 1. This one doesn't have it, so I'm going to just bring it once. So it gives me 3.4. So square root of 12 is 3.4. See that? Let's do another one. Okay, let's say for example, Mr. Mac to give you square root of, let's say 20. Okay, and I told you square root of 5 is equals to 2.24. I gave you this information. Alright? So how are you going to do that? How about we do this? Go ahead, pause the video. You do it, come back, let's do it together. This is not hands-on practice, it's just temporary hands-on practice. Alright? Go ahead, pause the video. How was it? Not bad, isn't it? Okay, so let's talk about it. Alright, how do we do it? This 5 should give you a hint. What's the hint? 5 times what gives me 24? That means square root of 5 times square root of 4. I know square root of 4 is what? 2. Now do I know square root of 5? It's not a perfect number. It's not a perfect square. But I gave you square root of 5 is 2.24. That means I can substitute that for 2.24. See that? Now can I multiply them? Yes. Decimal. So I'm just going to say forget now, remember later. So we're going to say 224. I'm going to times it with 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I'm going to bring it back. How many digits behind the decimal? 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2 right there. So that means 4.48. See that? Pretty easy, isn't it? Okay. Now I can also give you, let's say in a form of, let's say I still give you this one. Square root of 5 is 2.24. And I told you find the square root of 0.05. How do you do that? Move the decimal. Remember earlier we talked about move the decimal. 1, 2 until you get to the 5. That means square root of 5. How many times did you move? Twice. That means 2, 0. 2, 0. We're going to find the square root of 100. Square root of 5 is what? 2.24. Okay, 2.24. What is square root of 100? 10. That means I'm going to grab the decimal, move it to your left. How many times? Once, because 1, 0. That becomes 0.224. That's the answer. See that? Follow this step. Okay? Move the decimal, make it to a round number, 5. We already given, I gave you this, so I substituted that. But now the 100, because you moved it twice, that's 100, alright? You square root of 100 is 10. That means you're dividing this with a 10, which means I'm moving the decimal to the left, to your left. It becomes 0.224. See that I moved it this direction, I move it to the opposite direction, back where it was belong. After I take the square root of that, which is 10, move it back right there. Alright? That way you move it back because you moved it that way. So you have to move it back after you took the square root. See that? Pretty easy, isn't it? Very straightforward. That's the beauty about mathematics. Alright, my dear student. That tells you it's time for hands-on practice. Okay? So let's see what Pablo's doing. I'll tell Pablo. Pablo, take it easy. Don't give too many questions. What? He said, no, Mr. Mac, we need to challenge our students. Yes, he's right. Practice, practice makes it permanent. The more you practice, the permanent it gets into you. Alright? I know you're always used to the word practice. Practice is perfect. Now, Mr. Mac believes in mathematics. When you practice and when you practice in a right way, it becomes permanent in a right way. That's what I want. I want it to be permanent in you. Something that you remember for life. Because I want you to learn mathematics for life. Not for just for now. Just for Form 2. Or just for your PMR. No. Mr. Mac wants you to learn for life. So you will use it for your Form 4, Form 5. And then when you go to university, when you go to the real business world. And then when you apply it. everything that you learn from Score A Math Victory. And I want you to be victorious in your life. That's Mr. Mac's goal. Not just for what you're doing right now, for your future as well. Alright, my dear students. I'll be back in a few seconds. Alright, my dear student, in this section we're going to talk about using calculator. Now Mr. Mac don't encourage you using calculator, but there are times that you may need to use calculator, especially if it's not square rootable. Like say for example, when numbers there's a rootable, square rootable, like say for example, if I had to give you 64 and I want to find the square root of 64, and we know that because that's our timetable range. 8 times 8 is what? 64. So that means we know square root of 64 is 8, because we know that 8 times 8 is 64, and when you square root you're only looking for one number, which is 8. See that? So let's say if I had to give you square root of 49, and you know that 7 times 7 is 49, and I only need one number out of that, and that's what square root is. You're finding two identical number. When you multiply, that will give you 49. Square root, you just take one out of that. Now what happens if the number is not square rootable? Let's say for example, if I had to ask you what's the square root of 42, can you find in our timetable that two identical number when you multiply will give you 42? There is not a round number in our timetable. See that? So that means this is going to be a decimal number when you square root. So that means we have to use a calculator. If you are using a basic calculator like this, I'll show you how to use a basic calculator to find a square root of 42. A basic calculator, when you want to find a square root of 42, you have to press 4, 2, and then the square root. Now if it's a scientific calculator, there's another video, I want you to watch that one, okay? That would be for a scientific calculator. Right now we want to learn how to find square root of 42, okay? Using a basic calculator. So what it comes out to be 6.4807. Okay, now usually you want to write your answer 6.4807. You want to round it up to 10th place. Okay, that means 6.5 rather than 6.4807. And okay, so in this case you can say square root of 42 is 6.5. all right, so we're going to clear it. All right, now let's look at another number. Let's say for example I want to find a decimal number. I want to find a square root of a decimal number. Okay, this time I want to find what is the square root of 25.42. See? So how do I do that? Pretty easy, okay? So to find a square root of 25.42, so what you do is you press 25.42 and then you press the square root. Alright, now this is for the basic calculator. You have to put the number first and then square root. Now with the scientific calculator, you have to press the square root first and then the number. Alright, but let's learn how to use this with the basic calculator. Again, to find the square root of 25.42, you press 25.42 and then square root, and it came to 5.0418. Alright, see that? Okay, good. Right, my dear students, are you ready for some hands-off practice? Well, Pablo kind of gave me a peek of what he's doing, so I already got that written on the board, but we're still going to call Pablo out so he can hand over the worksheet to you. Alright, let's call Pablo. Pablo, come on over. Pablo, come on over. Yes. Well, my dear students, Pablo's going to hand over the worksheet to you. Once you're done, invite Mr. Mac in so we can work together. Alright, here it is. Have fun. I know, he really wants to challenge you. He really wants you to have a good practice on hands-on, all right? Okay, good, let's do it. Mr. Mac already got it on the board. Let's do the first one, 1a. We're evaluating, we're finding what the square root of 25. 25 is a perfect square. So that means we can find the square root of 25, which will mean what? 5 times 5, and we only need 1 out of that. Because we know, so 5 times 5, we only need 1 out of that, which is 5. 8 squared, which means 8 times 8, we only need 1 out of that. See that? That's why that 8 squared, alright? So in this case, it's not times out. 8 times 8 is what? 64, which is 8 times 8. See that? They kind of give in this format. Now this one, which is what? 49, which is 7 times 7 and 9 times 9. We only need 1 from the top and 1 from the bottom. 1 from the numerator and 1 from the denominator, which means 7 over 9. Right there. See that? Pretty easy, isn't it? Very straightforward. Round, it's a, what type of number is that? It's a mixed number, alright? So when you have a mixed number, you cannot do anything until what? You change it to improper fraction, alright? You can't solve it like this. So when I say improper fraction, we're going to use the semi-rotation method, alright? Okay, that means 9 times 2 is what? 18. 18 plus 7, 25. 25 over 9. Look at that. 25 over 9, which means square root of 25 over square root of 9. Which means what's square root of 25 is 5. What's square root of 9? 3. See that? That's how they kind of give in this format. They want to challenge you whether you understand how to change it to this and come to the answer. Alright? Same thing as this one right there. Alright? Which this is also could have been done this way. Square root of 49 over square root of 81. And you know square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 81 is 9. See that? Alright? Okay, good. Let's go to this one. Look at that. X squared. Which means what? X times X. We only need 1 out of that. That means X. Alright? We only need 1 out of that. Which is pretty much same thing with this one. Alright? We can put it like this, or just, this is just a working. Alright? The key is we just need 1 out of that. Now look at this one. Pretty much they kind of short. We only need 1 out of that. That means 12. Pretty easy, isn't it? Very straightforward, okay? Look at that one. Pretty much we just need 1 out of that. Negative 11. Now this one, which is square root of 1 over square root of 144. They both are perfect square because 1 times 1. See that? Because this is 1 times 1 and this is 12 times 12. We only need 1 out of that, which means 1 over 12. Alright? Square root of 1 is 1, square root of 144 is 12. Right there. Okay? What about this one? Remember? We got to move the decimal. We're going to move the decimal such we get a round number, a whole number, which means this is square root of 4, and then we're going to take, how many times do I move? 1, 2. So I'm going to take the 100 and I'm going to square root that. Alright? Now this is just a working, okay? So what is square root of 4? It's 2. What is square root of 10? 100? 10. Now we move the decimal that way. This one we're going to move it back this way. How many times? That means we're only going to divide that by 10. So that means move it once. 1, 0, once. The decimal is right there. I'm going to move it only once. I'm going to put the decimal right there. It becomes 0.2. So the square root of that is 0.2. This is just a working, alright? This is just working. Let's do another one. Same thing. I'm going to move this decimal how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4. Until I come to a perfect square, which is 121. How many times did I move? 4 times. That means 4 zeros. I'm going to take a square root of that. What is the square root of 121? It's 11. What is the square root of 10,000? There are 4 zeros. I'm going to divide that into half, which would be 100. Square root of that is 100. Now I went this direction. I want to go back to this direction. How many times? Twice. Grab the decimal, move it twice. 1, 2, right there. So that makes it 0.11. Square root of that is 0.11. Alright? Okay? Pretty much same. 15 times 15. We only need one of that. See? Pretty easy, isn't it? Alright, good. Because why it's so easy? Because you've been paying attention. You've been putting a lot of effort to learn what Mr. Max been teaching. That's why it's so easy. Because you understood and you're applying what you learned. Alright? Alright, my dear students, let's go to problem number 2. Alright? So let Mr. Mac erase the board and we'll do problem number 2. I'll be back with you in a few seconds. Alright, my dear student, ready for problem number 2? Let's do it. Okay, problem number 2a. You're given square root 27 times square root 3. Now, neither of them are perfect square. How are we going to find the square root of that? Well, let's times them out. Okay, let's do this. 27 times 3. What would that give me? Okay, so we're going to use the long multiplication method. Alright, line them up. 3 times 7 is 21. Carry the 2, put the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 81. Square root of 81 is what? 81 is a perfect square, which is 9. See that? That's the key. That's the key. They want you to combine it and then find it. Alright? The same thing with this one. Alright? So we're going to take 24 times 6. So we're going to line it up. 24 times 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 carry 2. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. That means square root of 144 is 12. Square root of 144 is 12. Alright? What about this one? Now this is also over 1. That means I can times like this with the double arrow method. Alright? Which means square root of 32 times 2 over 49. Which is 32 times 2. 32 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 64. 64 over 49. I can break it out like this too. Alright? 64 over 49 square root. Okay, I can break it out like this too. Alright, individually, which is still the same. Doesn't matter. I can leave it the way it is too, like this too. You still can do it that way. 64 square root will be what? 8. Square root of 9. Square root of 49. 7. 8 over 7. Do I leave it like that? No, that's an improper fraction. 1, because in 8 there's how many 7? 1. Balance will be 1 over 7. 1 over 7. Alright? What about this one? They both are same. That means 12 over 15. Right there. Now do I leave the answer like this? No, I can simplify. I can divide this by 3. I can divide this by 3. That means 12 divided by 3 is 4. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 4 over 5. Alright? Because look, these are same. Alright? Which means 12 times 12 over 15 times 15. I just take 1, which is that, and then I simplified it. Alright? What about this one? This one I can write down as 150 over 6. Because this is not a perfect square, not a perfect square. I cannot find them. That means give me a hint. If I do like this and divide inside, maybe I might get a perfect square. That should the hint should give you. Alright? So 150 divided by 6. 150 divided by 6. We're going to use the long division method, the cage approach. 150 is kind of into Mr. Mac. I'm going to put inside the cage. 6 is kind of out. I'll put outside the cage. In 1 I cannot go to the next digit. In 15 there's how many 6? Very good. 2. 2 times 6 is 12. 5 minus 2 is 3. 1 minus 1 is 0. Bring the 0 down. In 30 there's how many 6? 5. 5 times 6 is 30. That gives me 0 when I subtract. That means this is also equals to square root of 25. Square root of 25 is what? 5, because that's a perfect square, which is 5. That means this is 5. See that? What about this one? Same. 4.75 square root times 4.75 square root. What would that be? 4.75. Right there. You got it? Good job. I'm so proud of you. Mr. Mac always proud of you because you're the best. Alright, let's do problem number 3. Let Mr. Mac erase the board. We'll do problem number 3. I'll be back within a few seconds. Alright, my dear student, problem number 3. You're given that square root of 5 equals to 2.24. So this time you're given, alright, I said problem number 3, we're evaluating. Let's do 3a. You're given that square root of 5 equals to 2.24. And you're told to find what is square root of 80. Alright, now that should give you a hint, the 5. Alright, let's break this with the 5 in it. Alright, that means we're going to take 80 divided by 5. So let's do 80 divided by 5. So we're going to use the long division method. Alright, so long division. See that after Mr. Mac used to putting the square root, I use the division also. So remember the long division, you gotta have a curve to it. 80 is kind of into Mr. Mac, I'm going to put inside the cage. 5 is kind of outside, I'll put outside the cage. 8, there's 75, 1. 1 times 5 is 5, and then 8 minus 5 is 3, bring it down 0. In 30 there's 75, 6. So that means 16 times 5 is 80. Alright, so 16 times 5. Now look at this, I can break this up to square root of 16, square root of 5. And I know square root of 16 is what? 4. Because that's a perfect square. That's a 4. And do I know square root of 5? It's given 2.24. That's right, 2.24. Now then what do? Just multiply. We got decimal, alright? So forget now, remember later. So we're going to take 224. We're going to multiply that with 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Carry 1. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. 4 times 2 is 8. So bring the decimal back. How many numbers behind the decimal? 1, 2. This one doesn't have it, just this one. 2. 1, 2. So I'm going to bring 1, 2. Put the decimal right there. That gives me 8.96. That's my answer. You got it? Good job. Alright, let's do B. Alright, B, you're given square root of 7 equals to 2.65. And they want you to find what is square root of 63. When you have something like this, that tells you you should able to break 63 with 7 in it. So what times 7 give you 63? That's in a timetable range, alright? 9 times 7. 9 times 7 is what? 63. That means 9 times 7. See that? That means square root of 9 times square root of 7. And I know what square root of 9 is. 3. What is square root of 7? It's given, which is 2.65. Right there. Can I solve that? Yes, just multiply. Okay, it's a decimal. Forget now, remember later. So we're going to take 265. I'm going to multiply that with 3. 3 times 5 is 15. 5 carry 1. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus 1 is 19. Carry 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. Am I done? No, because we're going to bring the decimal back. How many digits behind the decimal? 2. So I'm going to count 1, 2. So 1, 2 right there. So that gives me 7.95. So you found the square root of 63, which is not a perfect square, to be what? 7.93. I'm sorry, 7.95. Alright? So 7.95. Okay, 7.95. Alright, good. Let's do problem C. C, you're given, alright, let's do C right here. You're given square root of 13 equals to 3.6. And they want you to find what is square root of 0.13. 0.13. Alright, what do? We move the decimal. How many times? 1, 2. Alright, so that makes it square root of 13. Alright, and then when I moved it twice, how many zeros that means? 2 zeros. I'm going to find the square root of 100. 2 zeros, alright? Square root of 13 is given 3.6. Now, 100, square root of 100 is what? 10. See, I went this way, now I'm going to go that way. I'm going to grab the decimal, move it 0, 1, 0, once, only one time. Put it right there. So that makes it 0.36. That's what square root of 0.13 is. 0.36. See that? Pretty easy, isn't it? Alright. After I took square root of 100, I get 10. I'm moving this decimal once because there's only 1 0. I'm only going to move once. Actually, I'm dividing this with 10. That means I'm moving the decimal to the left by once. Alright? And give me 0.36 right there. Pretty easy, isn't it? Awesome. Why it's easy? Because you are the best. And you are learning quick, you're learning well, and you're paying attention, and you are doing Master Mac's hands-on practice, and it's time for quiz. Yes, Mr. Pablo. Mr. Pablo just walked in and says, it's time for quiz, Mr. Mac. Thank you, Pablo. Thank you. And he just dared us. He said, I dare you. All right, let's take the dare. All right, let's take the challenge, and let's go and do the quiz. All right, my dear student, go have fun with the quiz, okay? And then come back and see Mr. Mac. And the next sub lesson is going to be more fun, and just as fun as this was. Just as fun as this was. All right, my dear student, bye-bye.